Hello, my friends. Welcome to the second video accompaniment to the Embodied Everything newsletter. This video is a companion to issue number 5, where the embodied tip for this month is how to integrate your inspiration. And in this video, I'm going to go over how we treat those moments of receptivity, whether we've entered into them on purpose or by accident, by happy accident, how we treat those moments when we receive a hit of inspiration from the universe, from something happening in our day, from within, some insight that comes through, some realization that comes through, some natural surge of creativity. When we find ourselves in those moments of flow, what a beautiful opportunity to practice embodied receptivity, pausing, noticing, and then seeing the world through the lens of that inspiration and allowing what we've received to actually integrate and settle and kind of make itself known before we rush to share it. So I don't know if you relate to this, but for me, as a creative person who loves to perform, to collaborate, to lead, to teach, to share what's come through for me with other people as a way to connect and as a way to create meaning, often my instinct in those moments of flow is to immediately jump to how can I crystallize this information that I've received or this creative inspiration I've received into something tangible that people can digest. And almost within this culture of productivity and that kind of endless productivity cycle that we find ourselves in within the capitalistic model, that the magic of that reception, of that transmission that has come through immediately gets funneled into how do I share this? How do I receive feedback for this, right? And so as I outlined in the newsletter, in the blog post, I don't want to discourage us from taking messy action, from putting our ideas boldly forward before we feel they're totally perfect, because I think that is an important skill to develop. But what I want to encourage us to explore and get curious about in this warm, loosening, opening, and for me, a little bit ambiguous summer season is the practice of how we exist in an embodied way in those moments when we are in flow and when we are receiving something from source. How we treat that moment when we feel connected, not just using embodiment as a way to reorient when we're feeling disconnected, but actually to deepen the experience of feeling connected when we're in that space. And just notice how those practices and the way we treat those moments of receptivity can enrich our practice. So, with all of that said, I'd like to invite you to feel your feet, sense your breath, and here we are. We're going to begin by assuming a posture of receptivity as a way to practice what it feels like to be in that mode where we can actually tune in to something bigger than ourselves, when we're actually in a space of being able to receive from source, or however you like to define where you get those hits of inspiration. So sometimes we find ourselves in flow by accident. Maybe it's on a morning walk when the weather is particularly lovely, when we've just worked out and we've got the endorphins flowing, and suddenly we get an idea and it's like, wow, we've tapped into that thing that makes us feel so alive, right? It might just sort of come to us. Then there are other times where we engage in a practice in order to be available to that. So right now we're gonna do the latter. And when you notice yourself entering into those spaces, you can also engage in a conscious practice of assuming this posture. So the posture of receptivity is simply going to be a wide stance. You can practice this either sitting or standing. I'm sitting perched on the edge of my seat with my legs spreading out, so not clenched in, but open as if I'm about to hug someone with my legs, right? And so I'm sitting, I'm planted, I have a wide, sturdy base, and I'm going to now take my hands up in front of me. So I'd invite you to do this with me. And I can really feel the kind of like floating under my elbows. I might even let my wrists drop down. So there's a feeling of almost my arms are floating up on two clouds on either side. And then I'm gonna rotate, kind of starting from the elbows, rotating through that shoulder and allowing my hands to unfurl open. So I'm showing you my hands here, but actually they're gonna come more naturally out side to side. So let's try that again. Hands drooping down, I'll back up a little bit. Kind of elbows, and we can feel the tension here in the engagement, I should say, in the shoulder all the way through the bicep on each side. Kind of like something is lifting me up from below. And then starting from the elbows, I'm gonna start to turn down, rotating through my shoulder cuffs, feeling that opening through the upper back body. And let my hands uncurl. And just feel how that changes the way you're engaging with this space. What my teacher, Jeff Crockett, calls the upper space. So not just the chest, but sort of the whole presentational space, the space with which we greet the world, and the heart center. So we're softening the gaze, feeling some aliveness through the cheekbones, maybe a slight upturn in the mouth, a little inner smile, and feeling that sense of opening and softening through the heart center, as we then gently drop the hands down onto the legs, or if you're standing, you would drop your hands down at your sides. But either way, the hands are gonna remain upright or out as you drop them down. So my hands are resting like this on my legs. You might also stand with hands open at your sides. So we're in a posture of receptivity here. We're available. And what gives us the opportunity to be so available is the fact that we actually have established a sturdy foundation from the ground up. Our feet are on the ground. If you're sitting, your sit bones are on the chair. You can find a sense of stability in that base as you allow the upper space to open and receive. Now, from this posture of receptivity, I want us to start to practice noticing, pausing, observing. So noticing, when I talk about noticing, I mean when we start to feel, oh, I can feel that I have a little dull headache right now. That's something I just noticed. It's right here in the front of my forehead. And so I'm gonna notice that. And before I make any story about that or start to assign any meaning to that, I'm gonna pause. So I noticed, I'm pausing, and now I'm gonna observe what shifts. So I'm observing with curiosity. The noticing is the moment where something comes up, headache or open chest, relaxation, whatever it is, I notice it. And then before I create any narrative, I pause. I sense my breath to help me pause. And I just observe now how that sensation is interacting with the rest of the body. So this relates to that moment when you get a hit of inspiration, right? You're in the posture of receptivity, whether by design or by accident. You're walking down the street and all of a sudden you have this line of text just appear in your mind. Oh wow, that would be a really good idea for a song or a story, right? I just grabbed that. There's something out there that just came into me, some idea, some creative inspiration. So I'm gonna notice it, and then I'm just gonna pause and observe. And observe how that lands on me, how that affects my experience of sensation in the body, right? How that energetic shift, that excitement at that little piece of inspiration I received, how that shifts my experience in the body. And so for me, actually in that noticing, pausing, observing around this dull headache, it actually decreased the headache. As I observed, the headache sort of melted. And it became more integrated with my whole experience of sensation with the whole body. We can let out a sigh. And so what did I receive in that experience of opening myself up, noticing, pausing, observing? What did I receive? I received the insight that when I slow down, my awareness widens, and I'm actually able to feel more deeply and in a more nuanced way. And I actually feel a little more tapped into the essence of who I am. So when I slow down, I can be more tapped into the essence of who I am. That's what I received. And so now I'm going to take that and start to see the world through that lens. So say you received something like a line of lyrics, right? And you started to pause, notice how that felt in the body, observe. And now you're going to start to see the world through the possibility of what that line could become. Where did that line come from? You know? Did it come from within you? Did it come from somewhere else? But can we take that window of connecting to something bigger and start to see the world through that lens? And how does that change the way you move through the rest of your day? And then also the way that you treat that piece of inspiration as you move forward with it, whether it becomes a piece of work or something that you're going to share. It's not about being precious or protective, but it's about allowing ourselves to absorb the nutrients of feeling connected to something beyond our narrow perception of reality. Recognizing that we're part of a larger whole. And letting that integrate as we embark on the creative process and as we enter into the sacred space of sharing with other people. Let's just take one final deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth to seal our practice today. So breathing in and breathing out. You can put a hand on your heart and your belly. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I hope this opened up some new possibility for you, some new ways of thinking about embodied practice. And I wish you many moments of intentional and happy accident receptivity and inspiration as you move through the hot days of July. I invite you to stay open, to stay receptive, to stay curious and playful, and to engage with the loosening and widening and opening that this season invites. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.